Welcome to Computer Tips, Tricks, and Shortcuts. If you have a question, leave us a comment and we will try to answer your question. Now, let's get started. Today we're going to talk about pivot tables. What's a pivot table? It's a very powerful tool. Some think it's one of the most powerful tools in Excel. You can use a pivot table to analyze data in different ways. When you have very large spreadsheets with thousands of rows and you need to look at something like a part of that data, it is so useful in just analyzing certain parts of the data in a large spreadsheet. And I'm going to show you how to create a pivot table. This spreadsheet is a small spreadsheet, but you'll get the idea how you can apply it to very large spreadsheets. So let's just get started with this. The first thing you want to know is when you create a pivot table from a database, you have to make sure that each column has a header, or the pivot table won't work. So we're going to highlight the columns that we want as part of our pivot table, and then we're going to go to Insert, and then click on Pivot Table. And here it asks select a table or range, and it has in here the columns that we highlighted, so that's good. And then it asks where do you want the pivot table. Do you want it on a new worksheet or an existing worksheet? And then you would put the location if you want it on this spreadsheet right here or a different spreadsheet or whatever, but we're going to use new worksheet, so it'll just create a sheet 2. So click OK, and this is where we're going to build our pivot table. So first you want to figure out what is the data that you want to analyze. So we want to see our manufacturers, and we want to see how many items we carry of each manufacturer. So just clicking in these boxes on the right, add them to your pivot table. But this isn't showing me how many items each vendor has in my store. So what I have to do is get the item, take your mouse and click on it, and then drag it, hold and drag down into values. Now it's going to give me a count of the items for each vendor. And then here is going to be the subtotal of each item for that vendor. So let's say we don't want to see each item. So now we could take the item out of the rows, and you can click remove field or just click on item, hold down the mouse, drag it up here, and get rid of it that way. So now we have just a little small pivot table spreadsheet that shows you how many items you have from each vendor. So now I want to see, well, how many items do I have on order right now from each vendor? So let's go back over here and click in the box on order. So now that's showing me I have 660 items on order for Computers for You, 260 for Vans Galore, and so on. Well, now I want to see, well, which items are on order and how many of those. So let's go back, get the item, click on it, hold it, drag it back down into rows. So now we can see we have 240 flash drives on order, 245 microphone computers on order. So now we can see exactly what is on order. Now if you look down here, you've got blank, and that is because in our original spreadsheet on sheet 1 we have a blank row. So under that column in manufacturer is a blank space. So you can either delete this row to get rid of that, or when you're in the pivot table you can click on this arrow unclick blank and get rid of it that way. Now looking at this, sometimes we don't want to see subtotals. We just want to see the items on order and the grand total. So if you want to get rid of your subtotals, what you do is you make sure you're clicked in your pivot table, and then you go to your contextual tabs, which are created when you're working on certain items. When you work on a pivot table, analyze, and design tabs are created. So we're going to click on Design tab, and then in that toolbar we've got subtotals. So you click here, and then you're going to click on Do Not Show Subtotals, and that takes those away. Okay, so now I want to add the total cost on order. So I'm going to go over here and click Total Cost on Order. If for some reason I didn't want it to be added to the last column in my pivot table, I could go over here, click, hold down on your mouse, drag it up into a different spot. But it was fine where it is, so let's just put it back. And now I don't need the count of item any longer, so let's just take that out. We'll click on it, hold down, and drag it up here, take it out. I do want to have the product number in my pivot table now, so let's click on that. The one thing I don't like is the format of pivot tables in the new version. I like it more tabular. So there's two ways you could change it. One way is to have your pivot table active, be clicked in it, go to your Pivot Table Analyze tab, go to Options, and then go to Display and click on Classic Pivot Table Layout. And that puts it in a different look. It's more user-friendly to me. Can widen column B here. So that's just a preference. The other way that you can do it is to use the command tabular form. So I have that already on my quick access toolbar. The way you add it to your quick access toolbar is you can click right here, go down to More Commands. Up comes Excel Options. You can also get to Excel Options by clicking on File, go to your Backstage, and click Options. This comes up. You want to change it to All Commands. Scroll down until you find, there's a lot of them here. You got to go all the way down to Show in Tabular Form, which is right here. You would click that, add it, and then it adds it to your quick access toolbar and say OK. And then it's here on your quick access toolbar. You just click and it changes it to that format. The other thing I like to do is have the items in the column repeat itself and not leave blank spaces. So while you're clicked in this column, click on Field Settings, Layout, and then click on Repeat Item Labels. So now you have each manufacturer listed next to each item. So there you have it. Pivot tables. Practice this. We'll talk more about pivot tables in future videos. Thanks for watching.